Everything's going well?
Everything is fine.
Cool. I uh I try to prepare for this session, and I have a question. How do you negate a a Bullion value? So for example, if you have this,
Not,
you literally say not, like that's the oh, okay.
but inside parentheses.
Oh yeah. All right, hold up. Hold up.
Yes, like not true.
Oh, yeah, I was looking for it, and it wasn't clear to me how to do it. I saw like syntax like this. Hold up. I saw syntax like that or like this, something like that. And I'm like,
There is not equal as well.
okay. Yeah, I'm just going through this book, um, going through a lot of these different exercises. The book is called The Clojure Workshop. And so this is what I usually do as I attempt to prepare for our sessions. And that's pretty much it. But I was stuck on this part right here. I didn't know how to negate. So for example, it sounds like I could just say no. I gotta do this like that.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I wonder how much else is left in this. You know what I wish? So like in you program in .NET, right? Like C sharp or no?
Mm, I
Uh,
programmed Scala and PHP.
Okay. Something that I'm curious about is in .NET, you have your link library, and link provides a set of common operations in which your list or your array or your I don't know sequence, all that stuff implements IEnumerable as an interface. So as long as because they implement IEnumerable, you're able to call like common functions across all of them, regardless of their data type, right? But in Clojure, it seems as if you don't really have that common abstraction. Like you have to say, like if you want to add an item, there's a different function depending on the data type, whether it's a vector, whether it's a list, whether it's a hash map, whether it's a hash set. And so that's the part where I wonder why they didn't just have a common set of abstractions for managing collections, and why is every collection like have a unique function specific to that data type. You know what
The
I'm trying
data
to add?
types, the data types themselves are like abstractions. If you want, you can work directly with Java interfaces,
Okay.
which implemented these abstractions like I persistent collection. So uh, there are Java interfaces.
Yeah.
You
The
work with them directly.
well, with the Java interfaces, those are still mutable, right? And so, like, if you want to add an item to a collection, it's going to mutate that collection instead of create a copy with that new value added to it, right? If you rely on the Java interfaces. And so,
For example, if you
okay,
look at hash map, standard hash map, then if you start creating hash map instance, Then before until 8 elements, maybe 9, I don't remember exactly. One type used like array hash map. If there are more elements, another Java type use it for hash map, and this change happens
Okay.
without your direct interaction. So you start from array map, add new element in hash map, and underlying type is changed. Implementation is changed for more efficient implementation when you work with more elements, when you collect more elements in hash map and so on. Also, native Java hash map types are supported directly as interface. So if you work with interop with uh, instance objects returned from Java libraries, so if you get hash map, Java hash map, you can work with it like with persistent collection, like persistent hash map.
Okay.
But it's not persistent, really. It's just a Java hash map. So there are interfaces. If you look at implementation in Java, if you are talking about Clojure, not Clojure script, because this is a different implementation. Then in Java, all Java tools used like interfaces, abstract classes, and so on, so on.
Mm. Yeah, so that's kind of like what I was running into is I'm going through these exercises and I see a lot of similar operations, but they have different names depending on if it's a vector or if it's a list or if it's a hash set or if it's a map. And I'm like, why can't there just be a common abstraction for them? And the implementation details are up to that data structure and the performance that it kind of relies on based on that structure. Hence, a linked list
So
is
you can easily create your custom type, implement interface, and it will behave like standard data type.
yeah.
Uh, Other functions, the standard function will not see difference if it's a standard hash map or your custom hash map if you satisfy
And
underlying interface and so.
and to do that with an idiomatic closure, that's the strat method. Is that the name of it? The thing,
Mm,
or remember when we did the kata for business rules, and I thought you had declared, is it called a strat method? It's kind of like an interface, but for closure, where you can have like where you could do polymorphism. I forgot what it's called.
multi methods.
Multi methods. Yeah, that. I don't know where I got strat method
Multi-method.
from. Strategy pattern, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, multi. So I would use a
No, no,
multi
no,
method for
no.
that.
You can create using def type, def protocol. You can create custom type and satisfy interfaces. You can use proxy. You can create normal Java classes using specific notation for namespace declaration. You
Mm,
can generate class and normal Java classes generated. This is also possible. And you can also create Java file and implement something directly in Java.
okay. How in your closure development professionally, how often do you what percentage of idiomatic closure do you use professionally? before you have to rely on like Java constructs? Is it like 70%? Is it 90% you can
Well,
get away with idiomatic closure before you start relying on like Java libraries?
uh, almost never. uh, you should create some application which start suffer from performance issues, for example, some bottlenecks, and if you need to resolve this kind of issues, you need to work with Java directly, but usually our applications not so high loaded that performance
Okay.
issues arise. And I recently, like 2 months ago, I found use cases for protocols implementation. So I found use cases when defining custom protocols is useful and make implementations more clear. But usually it's not necessary. For example, multi-methods, they are little brittle in some cases. So maybe your code it's not tightly coupled enough. So it's too loose connection between your parts when you use multi-methods. Your code is too loosely coupled. So connections not so visible, robust, and maybe this is not satisfying. And you need, when you use protocols, you declare your intentions more clearly that you want to have some object with several functions or methods uh, linked to this implementation, and this should be visible and so on. So all tools existing in Clojure are useful, and you should have some experience, practical experience to understand, to realize cases where this tool or another tool is useful or more applicable. So to use custom type or just standard data types or create protocol and so on, so on.
So a protocol is
The,
a completely different concept from um, multi-methods.
the protocol is like interface.
Okay.
So it's several functions without implementation, declared without implementation, which can be satisfied by different types. So protocols can be satisfied by standard types and by custom types.
Protocols provide efficient polymorphic dispatch based on the type of the first argument because it's able to exploit some very efficient JVM features. Protocols give you the best performance. Multi-methods enable very flexible polymorphism, which can dispatch based on any function of the method's arguments. Multi-methods are slower but very flexible. And my general advice is to use protocols unless you have a specific case that requires multi-methods. Okay.
So it's possible that there are use cases when multi-methods are too flexible. So if they are too flexible in your case, you can use protocol. So protocols, using protocols is more close to static type programming because you can use protocols when your object which you operate on have specific type satisfying this protocol. So
Like, I'm having a hard time getting excited over Clojure. Maybe because I'm still going through the pain of learning the syntax. And I hope that like once I learn the basic fundamentals of the syntax that it'll become exciting to like think in or write code in. But I'm really like forcing myself to carve out an hour to study um and then like you'll message me, but I'll make sure I do an hour of study time before you and I have our session. Like I don't know, for some reason it wasn't the journey of learning Clojure that I'm going through right now is not as exciting as the journey of when I was learning F sharp. And I'm not sure if there's other things going on in my life, like other stressors, or if it's not just fun to learn, but once you understand it, it makes life a lot easier. I'm not sure which one it is, but I'm really struggling to like enjoy this process of learning it. Did you ever feel that way or no?
maybe it's not for everyone. Some people just hate parentheses and
No, it's not the
hates
parentheses
leaves,
part.
leaves and so on.
I,
Cannot read it.
I think I'm okay with the parentheses. It's just it's just very, very alien to me. And so like, okay, what helped me learn F sharp was I had to give up everything that I knew about object oriented programming. And the sooner I was able to submit to letting go of object oriented programming instead of using it to try to as a crutch to try to figure out how to do functional programming, the better off I was. I'm not sure if it's the same thing with learning Clojure. If I need to forget everything I know, if I need to forget everything I need to learn, let me start over. Take two. If I need to forget everything that I've learned about functional programming through F sharp, just let go of it and just have a blank slate and just submit to Clojure. Like, I'm not sure if I should do that or if it's really supposed to be easier because I have functional programming in F sharp. The three basic building blocks is map, filter, reduce, and it should be a natural transition to Clojure, with the exception of Clojure being dynamic. Right now, it's just like I'm getting it, but I'm not excited about it. But when I look at YouTube videos and I look at Twitter, like Clojure is like a religion, almost like F sharp, but Clojure has a cult leader like Rich Hickey, and like people like I don't know, they just have a cult following towards Clojure, but it's not clicking with me yet, and I don't know if it's just me or the language that I don't know. Like, do you personally know people that are highly intelligent that they said no to Clojure after they tried it out?
Well, as for functional programming, then I don't see any difference, for example, between Clojure and Scala in functional programming approaches. So, on learning Scala, I learned for functional programming in Scala implementation. So, I didn't program uh, uh, didn't program as functional programming before learning Scala. When I learned Clojure, I was already familiar with functional programming, and this was helpful when I learned Clojure because I didn't need to learn new concept like flat map, reduce, and so on. Those concepts are same in Clojure. The
Okay.
map, the reduce, this is the same. In your case, I think it's more useful, maybe not just to read some abstract, but take familiar algorithms from F sharp and try to implement them in Clojure. So,
Yeah.
for example, I started programming Clojure about, let's say, 1 year after looking at Clojure from side. So I worked in Scala, created my project and at work, and read about in Scala at work, read about Clojure, thinking about, but didn't program something. Then I took my existing Scala project and implement this in Clojure. This was my first practical work. In this case, I had clear vision what to implement. I had this code in Scala, and so the task was clear. The only question was to implement in different new language. So I was concentrated only on this new language issues, how to resolve them, but the task itself was clear for me. And this was useful for me, more useful than just, for example, if you read some examples and even make mm, exercises, some abstract exercises, those exercises have no purpose. They just abstract, so maybe they're not so useful when you have clear task, clear purpose, and
Yeah.
just find a way how to implement it in chosen language. But about concept like monads, reducing, this is the same in Clojure. Clojure has standard library, have all functions to work with standard data types. This is more useful for me than in Scala because in Scala there was not clear. There are many standard data types like list, mutable list, vector. So many types. It's not clear. There was not clear in Scala which data type from standard library should I use in my for my task. What is the difference between vector and list? What should I choose, and so on. Also in Scala, you can work in object-oriented approach. You can mix it. Nothing is forced. So you can also create cryptic libraries similar to Haskell and so on. This, as a result, code can be mixed between different teams. In Clojure, you have less freedom. There's just single standard library, limited amount of standard data types. but those data types are usually enough for everything. So just map, vector, you don't need anything else.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so those data types which are in JSON specifications are usually enough. So like object with nesting, and so object fields, arrays, or vectors in Clojure. So that's all.
Hmm. Although, I mean, to your point, like, yeah, I'm just going through exercises. I feel like I mean, for me, that's pretty much been the journey to learn any language is like read like 2 or 3 books, do some sample exercises, and then once the syntax solidifies in my brain, then start doing code katas, right, that are more in depth. And then once I knock off like maybe half a dozen to a dozen code katas, then I start a passion project. And I work on that for like 2 or 3 months until I get tired or until I have something. And then I'm usually like participating in Stack Overflow questions and answers and stuff like that. Um, so maybe like I could use Clojure to just write a backend service that for my hobby project that I'm currently building. I'm not sure how well it integrates with Azure, but I'm sure someone has pulled it off before, and I could look at some blog posts. So I don't know. F sharp has spoiled me, and for whatever reason, it's painful for me to learn a very different way of programming. Even though I purposely wanted to learn Clojure because I wanted to learn a very different way of programming. So that's pretty much it. I don't really have too much to share. I was just going through. Where's my thing at? Going through these comments.
Maybe there is a sense to just jump into the water and so and start creating project for backend and learn on in something real. So
Yeah, probably. I'm trying to see what the next chapter is. Hold up for a second. What chapter am I even on? Hold up. Table of contents. I'm at creating. I'm past all this part. I think I'm in data type, strings, numbers, maps, sets, vectors, lists. Yeah, I'm at collection and sequence abstractions. And yeah, so this is what I look forward to creating a in-memory database. I didn't get to this part yet, but that's the next activity more than likely. And then chapter 3 goes into detail about functions, which should be interesting. I don't know what multi-arity means.
this is functions with one argument or two arguments or three arguments. So this is arity. How many arguments from function has.
Is there
And
a
you can create different implementation for different arity.
there is pattern matching in Clojure, right?
As library, it's not as in standard.
Oh, okay. So it's a separate library.
This is separate library, and I don't use it.
Okay.
Usually it's not necessary. Generally, Rich Hickey not
So,
doesn't like pattern matching, so it's implemented separately.
yeah. Okay. So it has a 13, 14, 15. It has 15 chapters, and I'm almost at chapter 3. Oh, God.
Uh,
This is going to
uh,
be a
uh,
while.
did you look at Clojure for Brave and True? This book?
Uh, I think it sounds familiar. Hold up. Where's my closure thing at? Give me hold up. Hold up. I have closure workshop, programming closure, getting closure. No, I don't have closure for the brave and true.
This is available online.
Yeah, these are only 3 closure books I have. These 2 I had for almost 2 years. I read through most of them, but I didn't really like write any code because I couldn't
I,
get
I've,
my.
dro- I've dropped a link to you in private chat. So for me, this book was it's fun and cover more practical things about Clojure when you're familiar with functional programming in other languages and so on.
That's one thing I will say. F sharp. Like, I mean, you probably don't believe it because you only see me struggling with syntax with closure. But like when they say become a better programmer over here on the book cover, like F sharp has like contributed to me probably being like a 4x developer. Like, because I mean, I work as a contractor. I wish I worked as a consultant, but I don't have autonomy. People just tell me what they want or what they want me to do, and I'm forced to just do it unless I want to quit. But like the developers that I work with, like the code that I write, I mean, it's just, and I know it sounds like really arrogant, but like the code that I write is like so much higher quality and shorter than almost everybody else. But then it's only when I ask questions on Stack Overflow that people like show me their code that makes me feel like I'm a junior developer. It's just weird. But like if I didn't learn F sharp, I probably would be my code would look pretty much like everybody else's, like very error prone, hard to test, etc. So I'm not sure if Clojure is going to increase my productivity and the quality of my code even more. I don't know. It's kind of like when you're already good, how much effort does it take for you to get even better, right? And it's usually like very, very little once you get to a certain level. I'm just thinking out loud right now. So, did you feel that? I mean, like you learn Scala first, right? And then, well, okay, you learn Java, and then like you learn Scala. How much more effective or productive were you from Scala to Clojure? So, like when you went from Java to Scala, you probably noticed a considerable like surge in your programming ability and your solution or your problem solving programmatically. But then when you went from like Scala to Clojure, did you really increase the same amount of like, I don't know, just being better? Or did you get just a little bit better
Much
um,
better.
from Scala to
And
Clojure?
yes, in Scala the code is too. it's hard to refactor, for example. So you create abstractions, your code becomes so coupled. So then when you have a big, long living program, it's really hard to refactor later. There are so many changes. To make a small change, you need to fix many places to compile your project. Also, Scala has much more requirements in IDE, for example,
Really?
in Java. Yes. Then I opened my old project recently to fix something, and my computer is work more intense than this Clojure project. In Clojure, I just get fun when I work in Clojure. So I work in, today and yesterday. This is my weekend, but well, I still have some refactoring ideas in my current project. So yesterday and today, I also programmed making refactoring until I satisfied with the results. And I work, and at the end of the day, I'm not exhausted by. If I finished, I feel like satisfied.
Mm.
So I cannot say that Clojure is for everyone and so on, but working in Clojure, it's just for me, it's fun, and it's so flexible. So well, there is no clear approach. How should I do something? So there's no clear instruction to open manual and read, and rules that you should do this, you should do like this, another should do like that, and so on. Nowhere left, nowhere right. No, there are many possibilities. So it's Clojure is limited in well, it's limited by the standard library, by standard tools which are provided. But these blocks, these tools are so universal. This is like Lego, and you can combine them. So you can think about how to compose existing tools and try different approaches, benchmark them, uh, create some code, and read this sometime later and see if it's still clear your intentions. So when the code you wrote months ago, if it's still clear for you today,
Mm.
when you didn't look at for a long time, and now I can write my code that it remains clear for a long time. So I get back to my project, to my old project, and I remember most part. I know what and how to find where and so on. Yes, maybe my 1 year ago code is maybe less clear that code from today, but I can try various ideas. I It's not required for me to rely to other people opinions. I can try different approaches and see if it's better or worse, what to do. For example, when I started programming in Clojure, I used monad approaches because this is also uh, like for comprehensions. They are used in Clojure. This is flat map. Many types implement this interface for comprehensions when you can work with sequence, or not only sequence but other types, like you take elements from the list and then work with them. So this works with error monads or with asynchronous code and so on. So I started to use it in Clojure as well because it's possible, but then abandoned because those solutions make code more complicated, unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah.
There's, so the problem was to unlearn things which are not necessary, just some conceptual ideas, how code should be written. So it's like a Zen, like Japanese Zen. So this is state of mind when you unlearn all rules and just program your ideas directly in the code. So you want to do something, and it's clear how to do it. So
Mm.
it's like mind flow using standard elements.
Yeah, just the art of submitting and letting go, right? That's the hardest part.
Also, the big pro of Clojure is that this is about backward compatibility. So code written 10 years ago, 99% that it still works in new Clojure. So from Clojure 1.3 or currently Clojure 1.10. So code still works. In Scala, those updates from Scala major version change
Yeah.
your program. This was total nightmare. So and well, if you upgrade Scala and your code, there are libraries. New version of your libraries you use not available in new Scala or doesn't work in new Scala, and this. So I worked in Scala several years, not so many, but I was suffered by this upgrade issues. This is backward compatibility issues. Same with JavaScript world. People say that your project you don't touch your project for 6 months. If you try to upgrade, you have problems because new
Yeah.
libraries not compatible with, and so on. So this is nightmare. In Clojure, this is very stable. Rich Hickey is careful about this, so nothing is changed if it's really necessary. And this is very relaxing as well.
Yeah. I only know like of maybe two Rockstar or two publicly known Rockstar developers on Twitter. Like one is the author, Dabash. I don't know how to say his last name. He wrote the book Reactive Domain Modeling, in which the examples are in Scala, and so that's one of the books that highly inspired me after I read Domain Modeling Made Functional by Scott Blashin. So one is the Bosch, and then the other one is, and he works at Lightbend. I don't know if you heard of that organization, Lightbend. Probably. I don't know. The other one is what's that guy's name? What's his name? He's pretty active. I think he was the author of Zio. I don't know what Zio is. It's some like framework or library. I forget his name. Yeah. Yeah. So apparently you haven't heard of either one of them, right? It sounds like no. What is his name? I can't remember the other person's name, but those are the only two like Scala, I don't know, celebrities that I know of within the Twitter world. So that's it. How do you spell Dabash? Maybe I get rid of him. Oh, Dabash Ghosh. This is his Twitter handle. I'll send it in a private chat. That's his Twitter handle right there. I don't know how to say the other guy's name. Um, I like this book though. Yeah, I can't find the other guy. Maybe if I Google Zio. Does he sound familiar? You recognize him? John A. DeGose. That's his name. I like him too. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So those are the two Scala rock stars that are popular on Twitter that I send in your private chat.
The second one is familiar, is known for me as well.
Okay. Yeah, I talked to him on the phone one time. He's he's a cool guy.
Also in Scala, it was not easy for me to work with JSON-like structures to implement this APIs, communications between external services using JSON conversions or this JSON data in Scala was not comfort to work with for me. Maybe I didn't use nice library because I used Lift framework and its components like lift JSON and so on.
Yeah, I tried learning Scala 3.0, and I, I couldn't see why I would switch from F sharp to Scala. I don't know. It just I felt like I was going backwards. Of course, that could just be my ignorance of what Scala has to offer, but I just wasn't seeing it.
As I see, F sharp has more clear syntax, so it's like Haskell in some
Okay.
way, maybe more like Haskell than anything else. And the
Okay.
Scala is very verbose, not less verbose than Java, but still verbose for me.
I have.
And there are in Scala also this is operator priorities difference between passing arguments by value or by reference, so on. You can write function call with parentheses or without parentheses if it has no arguments. So it's not clear if it's function call or passing function as argument, and so on. So many small issues. That's why I very like Clojure syntax, because it's simple: scope, parentheses, scope, function application or invocation, arguments.
I wonder if any.
Macro invocation argument. So no argument, no priorities between. So it's like what has high priority, multiplication or addition. So like in math, you should put parentheses to keep correct order of computation, so on. Clojure is free from those issues, and I like it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll keep plugging away. I'll try to do my hour study time personal before I do another hour with you to review. And I got to make a run. But thanks for the therapy session. And I'm still chugging, but I'm still pushing, right? And most of which is because you reach out to me and say, "Hey, we're going to have our session." So thank you, because it's pushing me to keep making progress and keep studying before we have our session, so it could be somewhat productive and not frustrating, at least for you, hopefully. So
You
thanks.
can say I'm over in any time.
No,
It's
no,
enough.
I really want to be a finisher, and so like this is important. As long as I can like keep making progress each week, I'm good. I don't want to start something and quit like a month later. I really want to understand the basics. I really want to be able to. I don't have to be a rock star in Clojure. I just want to be at a junior level in Clojure, and that's okay with me.
As I know, Clojure is for old tired programs who tired from their current known languages. So and they find some new approaches to make their life easy. In your case, you are satisfied with F sharp,
Yeah.
so you are not tired, and maybe you are not an audience for Clojure,
Well,
not a direct audience, for example.
the thing is I still pour a lot of hours into my passion project, and so my passion project is a mobile delivery app, and it's written in F sharp. And so it consumes a lot of my time. And so like I literally have to carve out time to study Clojure for like an hour, and then to have another session of learning Clojure or reviewing what I studied with you, which is another hour. So it's not like I'm like just chilling, doing nothing. No, like I'm still programming, and at the time working a full-time job while still doing my passion project early in the morning or late in the evening, and then still trying to carve out time to learn the basics of Clojure, and still trying to carve out time to lift weights or exercise. So, and I got like family obligations. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just telling you what reality is, and how I'm still trying to push, even though it may not seem like a lot to other people.
I recommend you to try to read Closure for Brave and True. It's
Okay.
book you can read it like entertaining story about Closure, so you don't need to program. You can just read to get a feeling about. I think it will be the ideas will be clear with your background, with your functional programming background, and you can just see
What does that sound? That's your phone?
how yeah,
Okay.
and in this book you can just see closure approaches for tasks familiar to your work and so on.
Okay. I'll I feel like I have to finish this book first. Like I don't know. I try my best to just finish whatever I started. Um,
Closure workshop, as you show me, I guess it has too much information for beginner.
okay.
It tried to cover everything, but you don't need to understand all every small part of Clojure. You don't need details. At the beginning, you need the learning should be concentrated on most important part. No macros. You don't need macros. You don't need maybe multiple varieties and so on.
Okay.
Mm, So getting every details may be confusing. Too much information to keep in your head.
Possibly. Well,
So for example, Closure for Brave and True. This is like a fun story with humor and so on. You can read it in free time without computer, uh, like any other book. Also, for example, if you know those object-oriented uh, concepts, for example, I already gave you a link to programming pattern enclosure.
when did we do this thing? Was it
Mm, Design
yesterday?
pattern enclosure. Also, this reading design, so like closure design pattern is not long, but well, this is a dialogue between object-oriented programmer with object-oriented background and Clojure programmer, how to implement those ideas and other ideas and so on, also can be useful to understand the spirit of Clojure.
Okay.
And to decide is it for you, not for you.
I'll purchase it and read it maybe on while I'm commuting or something. Let me see. Hold up. What's this? Clojure design patterns. That's what you just sent me. Visitor. Yeah, everything's a function, right? Command, execute, and then def, define, execute, and then they have a vector called command. Okay, I'm gonna have to look at this. I gotta take off, Sergey. But thank you for
Okay,
the session and
you're welcome.
that book. I just had it. I don't know where it went. The Clojure for the Brave or whatever it's called. I'm about to pick that up. So I still want to finish a couple more chapters in the Clojure workshop, but
Okay.
I'll get that Clojure for the Brave for reinforcement. And yeah,
If you have any questions during reading your books, you can drop a question on Twitter. I will ask you.
okay, I'll do that. All right.
Because,
Well,
for example, for Clojure, you can you won't find everything on Stack Overflow for Clojure because usually answers somewhere else, not on Stack Overflow.
oh,
Stack Overflow is not the best source for Clojure answers.
okay. There's a what is best source? I mean, is there an actual like platform of questions and answers, or
There are different chat platforms like Slack and so on. But, well, Clojure documentation or documentation on clojure.org usually is more covers everything. So,
okay?
if you cannot find answer quickly for something, you can ask me and I'll drop you a link.
Yeah, like I did
Um,
last time when I
uh,
forgot the question I had asked you. It was driving me crazy. Oh yeah, I couldn't figure out a line wasn't um, why a line kept on getting rejected by the REPL, and it's because so I had a let declaration, and I guess I forgot to use the brackets, and I'm like, oh, why isn't this working? Like I spent half an hour trying to figure out that error. So, anyways, all right, well, good stuff. I'll ping you if I come across anything, and send me the invoice. Thanks. So,
ciao.
see you. Bye.